We're talking about that sort of that false shell, things that we prop up, whether that's for ego, whether that's for optics, how we look in a lot of ways to ourselves, right? So how do we look to ourselves or other people? And a lot of times we're so busy judging ourselves. A lot of that need for those optics is because we preemptively judge ourselves, thinking we know what other people think. And that's a hell of a game. That's how you put a reinforced bars around the jail cell you've already got in your brain, right? And so a lot of this game can tilt towards what looks like the negative, and it's assessing those aspects of not just where am I trapped, but what falsehoods am I living in that eternal seeking of truth. It's not always just where am I stuck. Sometimes we feel really good about the ways that we're stuck. It's a bit of a mind fuck in simple terms. I feel so good about the way I present myself, but then the day that I don't look that good or I don't look that way, man, now I'm depressed. Now I don't feel good. Now I don't whatever. And so there's all these mixed feelings in there,
Yeah.
preference or rules or judgments. We're messy creatures, I think,
Well,
in our
self-judgment,
heads.
most of it, right? It's not
Most of
so
it.
much the judgment from others. I think it's our own self-judgment.
We use that as an excuse that
Yeah.
it's judgment of others. Again, that false image of what someone thinks of me versus what's actually going on is I'm judging myself. And so I
Yep.
think that's the cope, that's the victim mentality, holding us back in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So I always think about we talk a lot about freedom, and I think about control. Right. It's almost the opposite end of the spectrums. So to be in control of your life, it doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that there's not failure. There's going to be hardship. There's going to be things we need to overcome. But to have control in our life is that we don't get a emotional attachment to something that we've created in our mind, and we're allowing it to dictate or control our behavior or our attitude. And that could be anything, man. It could be I have to put on this image to show people that I'm strong,
Yeah.
because we all know, Eric, that's not going to last. It will break down, it will crumble. We see it time and time again from these internet gurus, right? These
Yeah.
personalities of guys who are like, you got to be tough. Um, it always breaks down because when you are putting on an image, when there is a facade, when you're wearing a mask, it's going to fall apart. I would say my approach and what has worked with me trying to keep balance in life is I don't care if bad things happen or good things. And I was talking about this last night. It's not that, let me change the phrase. It's not that I don't care. I just don't let it affect me in any sort of way, positive or negative. I know that life is going to continually happen. And I base who I am off of that current position that I'm in, right? So
Yeah.
it could be a bad scenario, but it doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change how I feel about myself. It's just me saying, oh shit, I got to do some work now. And then when things are going well, it doesn't make me, I'm not like, oh, I'm the greatest, I'm the success, worship me. I'm like, oh, that was good, man. I got to enjoy that.
I
Awesome.
got to enjoy that. Right. And so I would even challenge the use of control implies, go figure, control implies control. Control implies you're in charge. Control implies perfection to some extent, back to that. And so really to be in control is to let go of control. And it's almost like that aspect of letting go of a, predestined conclusion to the work that you're doing. When I do this, I will never feel this emotion again. I will never be out of control again. I will never rage out. I will never have an argument. I think there's a lot of that perception of that's the work that we're doing in this group. And for a guy on day one, I get it. Like I get why that feels correct. But on the other side, looking back, it's in letting go of the need for control that I find peace. It's in experiencing the moment that I have no need for control at all. I'm literally just being. I'm literally just experiencing the here and now. I can't bottle up my happiness for later, just like I can't bottle up my control of the world for later, right? It becomes tyrannical in certain aspects, and maybe that's appropriate. There's plenty of situations where being tyrannical may be the answer if it comes to the safety of your kid, or it comes to, what I mean? Like, so that there are ways that we sway from this very peaceful, approachable, happy guy who just looks like everything's going their way, right? Like it's all over the place. It's a messy
Yeah.
thing. And I think it's the perspective that there's a finite decision and direction that needs to be made, and then I've made it. Most likely just shows a lack of perspective. But once you've attained that in some aspect, you can reflect on those other things and be like, you know what? I'm not a failure. I'm not a fuck up. I'm the human experiencing these things. And I get to judge how I feel about them when I don't wake up early in the morning, when I miss a workout. It was my judgment all along that was holding me back.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure we've heard the term anything that you try to control eventually winds up controlling you. Now, let's change the word control to win, right? Everybody wants to win at life. So,
Mm-hmm.
what I look at that is if my focus is always about winning, it's going to be really hard to win because I've already won by waking up, right? I've already conquered life by saying, hey, I get to choose what I want to do today.
Depends on your
If I,
definition of win, right? Like, so
yeah,
could be all over the place.
no, I mean, it could, but what I'm getting more to is, especially in the Fraternity of Excellence, we talk about leading, we talk about winning, we talk about controlling our life and living the best life we can. So I would say if you could not paint a picture of exactly what that looks like and focus more on the path that you're going down, right? They're like, forget about the destination, forget about, how big your biceps are going to be in 6 weeks. Think about what you really have to do. I get to get up in the morning. I get to go work out. I get to do bicep curls. I get to do lat pull downs. Like what a gift that is in my life. I've already won. It's like the guy who's saying, if my kids can just behave a certain way or do what I want, I won. No, you already won, dude. You're a father. Look at the gift you have in front of you, your child. And then people will be like, oh, but then you have to parent them and they need discipline. Yeah, okay. Well, that's part of the gift. It's like you get a present and you're like, oh, this is great. Then you open it up and you're like, oh shit, in order to maintain this gift in a healthy way, I have work to do. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's that the analogy of the car, like people who take better care of their cars than their own bodies, and it's really just a matter of perspective. I get to take my kid to school versus I have to take my kid to school. Those words start to weigh on your brain, and yeah, we can live a life of being down and out, and we can live a life of optimism. I consider the darker work the most optimistic stuff I could do. I don't do it for kicks to be depressed. I don't dig deep in my brain and try to sort things out because I love being tortured. I know what it's like on the other side. Yeah, okay, maybe I enjoy it a little bit. I I've experienced what's on the other side to the extent that I know, like, man, how cool is it that I noticed something about myself that I never noticed before? And then there's some humor involved. Like last night, I said, man, I had this huge revelation about myself. And my wife will be like, yeah, I knew that all along. Like, duh, and for me, it's this deep soul searching thing. For the rest of the world, it's obvious. It's just a dude who hasn't dealt with his shit yet. But we got to get there ourselves to some extent. Right.
We do.
If I'm not doing that actually makes me happy when I've found something about myself that I can improve my experience through. That's exciting. Like, that's why I show up. That's why I'm open to other people's critiques and ideas, not because I need to embody them and make them mean something about me, but because it unlocks a perspective that I probably didn't have. And so when someone says, Eric, did you know you never shut up and you talk over everybody? It's like, damn, do I? Oh, wow. Where did that come from? And then I realized, oh, I felt like no one ever listened to me. And I had so much that I had to get out. I felt desperate. And as soon as somebody let me talk, I had to keep talking because I felt so in need of being heard. And this was like a legit thing that I went through. And now I'm practicing asking more questions and pausing. I'll still find myself being caught in a rant because I'm enjoying myself. I like coming off as intelligent and smart and well-versed and egotistical and all those things like every other human. Like, it's fun to have fun. And I'll find myself caught in those rants, but I have to pause and think like, hey, wait a minute. They asked me a question. Have I asked them a question? Like, where's the balance of this conversation? Are we both having an opportunity in here to grow? So that's me taking over that more subconscious mindset and seeking growth. But former me would have just sort of like drowned in the dark aspects of it and never moved on. And now I get to build, I get to grow. And I find that those are very attractive things. So, you know, all that wrapped around approaching what some people see as a negative topic or a negative mindset are extremely positive to me. Like to me, that's the core of the growth. That's where I find my happiness on the other side of that work.
Yeah, and I think that's more common than we, care to admit. I would say I know maybe one guy like that, what you just described as well. Right? It's not. But so going back to pretending, or let's say going back to being authentic, how much do you really know about yourself if you're not trying to understand those things about yourself, right? Like, oh, this is why I have this behavior. This is why I do this. This is why I have anxiety. This is why I'm afraid of economic financial collapse. This is why I'm, overbearing to my wife. Those are, like you said, that's the subconscious part of us that we are not aware of. So, in order to bring light to them, we have to go through the darkness. In order to find out how to create solutions, how to solve problems, we have to go to the deepest, darkest parts of ourselves. We can't be afraid. We can't be scared. And it's not like, oh man, you're so depressed, bro. No, I get that, right? Most of the time, the people who are like these, I'm a deep thinker, and they're shallow anyway, right? They're just putting on, that's another facade to put on to show people that you're interesting or some shit. What I'm saying is to really tap into a subconscious level of understanding and awareness, you have to go deep. You have to get into parts of yourself that you've avoided, parts of yourself that frighten the shit out of you, that you are scared to address, that you've never faced, that you've never told anybody about. And once you let that go, then there's the light, there's the happiness, there's the joy. There are parts of your life that you can embrace because you're no longer carrying that weight. I must have said anchors, dropping anchors 300 times last night on the call. But it's a
That
good
hit me.
analogy.
That hit me so hard, and it was interesting to see how it struck other people. That was a pivotal part of my life, and it felt like. And that was I've talked to a lot of guys who were like, "Well, how did it feel on the other side of that conversation, saying the thing that you were scared to say?" And the answer is generally felt like a ton of bricks was taken off my chest. Rarely are people like, man, I regret being honest and being myself and telling the truth. That's what you're scared of for whatever reason. Like that's in our own minds and our own fantasies. But yeah, again, I now attribute what I think some people see as darkness and depression and all these things. I attribute that to the ultimate happiness, the ultimate goal in that life, which is right, the seeking of truth and living a truthful life where I'm feeling the way that I want to feel and I'm enjoying the moment because now all that clutter is gone. All the shit I was hiding under the bed has been let out and it no longer controls me. That's when I can be at peace because there isn't something in the back of my mind nagging me that's saying like, you're still a fuck up. You're still a liar. Nobody likes you. You know what I mean? Like all that shit that we can feel on and off in varying degrees.
Yeah.
I think it takes some tenacity for a man to embrace that.
Yep.
And again, back to like not judging. I also don't want to judge a man who doesn't see that in the same way that someone who embodies that darkness and that's all they are. Oh, I'm a stoic and I grunt one word, one syllable words. Right. You can go too far in any direction. It's like I love gummy bears, but if I eat 5 pounds of it, I'm going to be, shitting for a week or constipated for a week. Either way, it can be detrimental to go too hard in any direction. And I think like anything, it's balance, it's learning lessons, it's seeing where you stand. But if you don't experiment at all, if you don't experience that darkness because you were always too afraid of speaking up and doing a thing, or if you always pretend that your life is rainbows and happiness and cheery, I don't know. For me, you're missing out. I don't think you're getting the full variety of life. And I'd rather some wild swings and have some experiences than always be one way and never know what was on the other side. Like to me, that's curiosity. That's living,
Yeah.
seeing what I'm made of.
Yeah. And to be clear, we're talking about the fake Stoics, not the real Stoics, like
Right,
not the
right.
actual,
I don't know what a real Stoic is. So
Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, right?
you didn't actually know him though. What do you know?
No, I didn't know him, but I've read him. Right. So I'm just going back to
The technical stoic.
no, the pretend, right? The people who pretend. So you were describing before the that feeling that keeps coming back, right? I'm no good. I'm not good enough. People are going to judge me. I'm not smart enough, and that feeling or that emotion, that those thoughts, they always keep pulling you back in, right? You try to
Mhm.
fight them. You try to overcome it. So what I would say, and what's helped me on my journey is I've learned to understand that they're just feelings. It means nothing about who I am. It's not a reality TV show. I'm not telling myself the truth. There are just things that are making me think this way, right? My emotions. And what I'm doing, I'm allowing them to take over the situation. So when I get into those positions, I'm like, I'm just feeling it this way right now, and that's okay. And you talk about the insecure ones or the sad ones, but me and you have spoken about this a lot about anger. Like when I'm angry, or I get frustrated, I don't have to beat myself up. I'm like, this is gonna pass.
Mhm.
It's how I really feel right now. So fuck it, let's go. If I offend somebody, if I say the wrong thing, I'm fucking angry.
Yeah.
So what? But what the reason I'm bringing it up is because if I let it out and I don't try to like push it down and be like, oh, I never get angry. Betas only get angry. It is going to fester and it is going to boil up inside of me.
Yeah.
And one day it's going to, I don't know, my eyeball's going to pop out or I'm going to really get triggered and say something ridiculous that maybe I can't take back. Or maybe I say something to a friend and I lose that friend for life. Or maybe I get so angry that I'm like, I'm never talking to that dude again.
But
And
you trust yourself to know how to navigate the other side of that. If you do get angry, there's no need to beat yourself up. Like you know how to repair a relationship after that point.
yeah,
And that's back to that
true.
trust and confidence. It's not that you're perfect. It's not that you never feel the feeling or screw up or say that like last night, I was acting childish in certain respects. It's okay. I own that. We're all children in a very large portion of our heads, right? I mean, that's what we talk a lot about is like how we're trapped, those egotistical states in a sense of a child not being safe, leading to being, the majority of our reactive nature is because we're a little kid and we don't feel safe. We need to belong to survive. And a lot of those gut feelings, followed up with a burst of a chemical reaction in our brains and in our bodies. It's no different from some reward mechanism getting us addicted to a drug. It's a safety mechanism having us to, become averse to risk. I don't want to get excommunicated. I don't want to get kicked out of the group. I want everybody to like me, so I'm never going to speak up. Or if I don't feel in control, like a manic, raging lunatic, and dominate everybody, then I don't feel safe. I need to be on top. I need to be in charge. And so it's the same thing. It's just two wildly different perspectives, two people who don't feel safe unless they act a certain way. So start noticing the ways that you're acting to fulfill some underlying subconscious need. And when you start to address where that need came from, that's the work. And if you want to put that in the category of dark and depressing, whatever, that's up to you to judge what that is. But to me, I am enticed by it. I am drawn to it. It's the capacity to unlock something that I formerly didn't understand and just said, well, that's the way I am. Now it doesn't need to be the way I am. I get to choose who I get to become depending on how much I look at that, what decisions I want to make, what experiments I want to take from there on out. Do I really need to be in charge? Do I really need to be passive? What happens if I speak up? So that's
Yeah.
it
Well,
can
no,
be
I
quite
would
fun.
say both ways are ineffective and energy draining, right?
Yeah.
Those two ways you described, like the man who is, let's say, very quiet and reserved and never speaks up, almost non-existent. That's exhausting. It's exhausting to push down your true self because you're afraid of others are going to accept you. But in the same regard, it's probably even more exhausting to put on an image that you're like this strong, dominating man that you never do anything wrong or you never fail. So you're hiding those failures. To me, I would rather be the first guy because probably because more people will be empathetic with him. They'll be like, hey, man, I see you're down. Let
Yeah.
me help you. With the other guy, they'll be like, oh, I don't want to go near that dude. He's a fucking lunatic. But both are struggling, is my point.
Right.
And what I think is where we're going to get the most growth. Like those two men are not growing. The most of the growth is going to happen when we're open, when we're honest, when we're vulnerable, and we can say, "Hey, man, I know you think I'm fucking crushing it, and I'm a stud, and I'm sexy as fuck." But this is something that is eating me up inside, and I don't know what to do. I need some fucking help. Can you talk to me about it?
Really, it's about it's a self-assessment. It's seeing yourself, and it's, for me, again, I can only speak to my own perspective. For me, it's finding ways to enjoy the process of growth. What I find enticing, what I find exciting, could be depressing and scary as shit to another man. And in the same respect, I could find something frightening that they could do, in their sleep. Like it just comes naturally to them. That's what that growth is about. That's what gaining perspective, talking to other people, meeting groups, having the right types of men around you. That to me is what that's all about. Be open to the idea that there isn't just one way, and that when you reach a goal, that goal is not a permanent thing. And when you start to add that flexibility into your life, I find you're able to let go of all that control that people are trying to seek and have. I need to control my kids and their attitudes. I need to control my marriage. I need to control the people who disrespect me. And in a lot of ways, if you want to go into control, work on your thoughts, work on your reactive nature, figure out where that comes from. That to me is a better use of time than being the tyrant to the outside world.